All right, now, everybody, quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And a hearty hello. Oh, yeah, the Big Wednesday show. Feel good about it, everybody. I know. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to be happy about. So let's try to be happy. Kim, how are you?
Kim, how are you?
Hey.
All right. Hey, Albert.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah. John Rothmann joins us today, the sage, the sexy sage of San Francisco. He'll talk about any number of things. Hang on, I just want to make sure I'm not getting I don't know. I got my credibility glasses on for maximum credibility. When Rothmann gets here, I want to look my very best, you know.
You look nice.
Well, thank you very, very much. I'm thankful. Thank you. I didn't expect that. Look, I have a new kind of concentration and focus as a result of where we are.
I just want to find 11,780.
We found 11,780 subscribers. Yes, we did. It's a milestone for us, and so, yeah, there's a little jump in our step. Yeah, I hope you were part of it. If you haven't subscribed, please do. We are a crowd-funded show, and that's how we stay on the air. We move the show from radio to television, radio, internet, whatever the hell this is. And that's how we do it. It's really, I'm hoping, the beginning of what will be a long relationship we have with the community that's found us here. And in truth, we have some newcomers to... some people I want to acknowledge along the way in the world of Patreon and PayPal, and I'll get to them because I think it's so very important. Those are really the ways that you can contribute to this show. Is there something, are you getting a feedback of some kind? Am I feeding back? No?
No, everything's fine.
Everything's fine?
Everything is going extremely well.
Okay, well, then I won't worry about it. Go Gigantes. Felix is right on for my G-men. Wow. Insane. The Giants. Giants on a tear. Very, very cool. Love the boys in orange and black.
Back-to-back walk-offs. Two epic walk-offs back-to-back, by the way, Mark. A splash hit, a walk-off, and then a walk-off walk.
The walk-off walk.
Albert, thank you.
Walk-off walk is a great, yeah.
The one 2 nights ago was particularly good, right? Where we trailed the Padres for much of the game, tied it up in the ninth.
Yeah, it was 4-0. Then there was a couple solo home runs, and then we somehow tied it. And then we hit a splash hit to, a walk-off home run. There's nothing that could quite replace that kind of excitement, especially mid-season. Like, it's June, and it's hard to get too excited. But, we swept the Dodgers. We were playing well.
Yeah.
I mean, we're beating the Padres. These are the two teams that spend the most money in the division, and they're both not even in first place right now. So it's just
I think honestly we're a bit downcast after last season. So
and we're calling up all the young guys, and all the young guys are playing well. So it's very exciting.
Indeed, congratulations, G-men. And if you're a Dodger fan, many people come here from Los Angeles or from other parts of the country. Or you're not into baseball, this means nothing to you. But if you are a fan of another team, that's cool, too. We welcome them all.
Sayonara, sucker!
And the Giants have been terrific, says Dillette. Yeah, really, really cool. So there is all sorts of stuff happening today. We're going to update the situation with this submersible and some revelations, I think, that we had pointed to yesterday, but now they've really come into some clarity today. And in the hours yesterday, we learned so much about the submersible, and not all of it is good. In fact, much of it is cautionary. John Rothmann joins us later this hour. We'll talk about the Trump interview with Brett Baer. We'll maybe get into some other stuff, wedge issues that I think increasingly will determine the outcome of the general election. Interesting to see how it'll play in other GOP districts. I'm talking about when I say wedge issues, this trans thing that they talk about, the well, the whole idea of where you sit on row may become something that is a defining topic and a rallying point for Democrats. So, I mean, we've seen it happen once, and it could happen again. Anyway, we'll get to Rothmann as well. I've got a big Law and Disorder. In fact, I'm tempted to start with it, but I want to start first with the Submersible. Then I'll get to Law and Disorder because there was just a major sentencing in the January 6th situation. So we got a lot to do. Please join us. Smash the like button like a boss. Let's go.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Likely signs of life detected, possibly. Rescue planes have been looking for this Titanic touring submersible. They hear banging every 30 minutes near the wreck site, they think. The wreck site of the Titanic, of course. That gives hope that there are people alive. But redirecting the drones to try to find the exact spot of that banging has left them unable to find the actual vessel. The news on this is, I sadly must say, I think grimmer and grimmer. 3 more vessels did arrive today to join this international effort to find the missing submersible. Coast Guard said it was looking for the sources of the noise as well. But this is probably the last day of oxygen. And this
This is
20...
it.
Yeah, I would also say this, and I think this is kind of where I'm beginning a conversation about some of the other things we learned about it. The amount of oxygen they have is based completely on what they're saying is on board and what they viewed as sort of a baseline respiratory rhythm of everybody on board. This is an extreme circumstance, and whether or not even there is that much oxygen on board is a question. Talking about oxygen and talking about flaws in this craft, I was watching a great... Did you watch it, Kim, the thing I sent you? It was really great.
Yeah, I actually have it up if you want me to show it.
Yeah, it's long, but I like what he detailed. Toward the end, he kind of goes to the summary of all the things, but let me just set it up by saying... This guy is a sub engineer trained guy, and he breaks down the way in which they came through the development process for this craft and what they seem to leave out in building this craft. And go ahead and play a little bit of it. It involves oxygen. It involves, there's a lot in this enclosed cabin that you have to account for beyond just the sort of the mariner part of it.
So I have the video from Mike, who was the reporter who went aboard. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, no. But I'll take that. Let's see what he says. That's not the one I was talking about. The one I was talking about was on this. Do you have it or not? Do you have it?
Yeah, hold on. It's
Okay. And then what? Okay, go ahead. Oh, this is from Mike Reese. Mike Reese is a writer on The Simpsons, and he actually went on board. But this will give you a sense.
There aren't many people on Earth who've done it, who understand what it's like to be down there and in a submersible.
He's actually taken the ride.
When you hear that 5 people are missing and that this urgent search and rescue operation is underway, what are you thinking?
You know, I'm not optimistic just because I know the logistics of it, and I know really, again, how vast the ocean is and how very tiny this craft is. And, it's a beautifully designed craft. I can't disparage it, but it's meant to go down further than any other vessels can go. So the idea of kind of, if it's down at the bottom, and I don't know how anyone's going to be able to access it, much less bring it back up.
Yeah, that is the sad fact, and maybe that is the only important fact, that even if you put aside some of the things that are concerns, like oxygen on board? What's the oxygen mixture? Do you just keep pushing oxygen into that cabin? If so, you're creating a fire hazard. I mean, there seem to be some things that were overlooked along the way. The whole idea of supplemental respiratory aids on board. There are tanks by which if the somehow supply was cut off, there would still be breathing apparatus on board. These are things that are kind of basic safety stuff that would be baked in normally, that engineers looking at the design of this vessel said weren't there. Now, the fundamental point that Mike Reese was making, though, is maybe the most important, which is if this vessel is at the Titanic depth, if it's on the sea floor, there's no getting it, because there are no vessels that can really get there quickly enough to actually get that deep. There are a handful in the world that get that deep, apparently, kinds of vessels that can make it that deep. The average submarine, I think, doesn't even go down more than 2,000 feet. So, I mean, which is a long way. But we're talking about the ocean floor, which is, 12 to 14,000 feet, something like that. Is that right? I mean, it's the depths to which the Titanic is caught, the Titanic wreckage, are depths that no rescue ship could reach. That's essentially the truth.
I was reading something about the founder and CEO who's aboard, and apparently he comes from pretty prominent San Francisco families. An article out of SF Gate was talking about how on his mother's side, he's from the Davies family of Davies Symphony Hall fame.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and his father's family, I guess there's two signers of the Declaration of Independence and a big oil family. So he's from a very wealthy San Francisco family, native San Francisco family.
Well, the CEO of the Ocean Gate, Stockton Rush, is on board with that Hamish Harding, who's another billionaire, both adventurer and engineer. He's an aviator. I played you a little bit of my interview with him when he was setting a record some time ago. I have the audio from the engineer that broke down the entire thing, and let's just listen to maybe 90 seconds of it and get a sense for how flawed this thing is. And I'll mention to you this before I run it. The flaws that were and are now evident to many who look at it, they were picked up by even those who had planned to be on the flight. I asked for a refund. They were cutting too many corners, said friend of Hamish Harding. He pulled out of joining the billionaire on this Ocean Gate sub because of safety concerns. Chris Brown is his name. He's 61. He'd paid the deposit to go on this voyage, but changed his mind after becoming concerned by the quality of technology and materials used in this vessel. So as we look at this, here now is a little bit of, this comes from a YouTube show called Subbrief, and he kind of summarizes here
is when they called the American
what
Coast
you
Guard.
need to what you I think need to focus on when you look at
Their
it.
vessels. So I made a short list of just some of the things I see wrong with this design. I'm sure this list will grow, and we'll know more once the investigation is complete on the submarine. First, they used a carbon fiber pressure hull. That is great to a point. It's lightweight, it's very strong, but it's not perfect. These things are not made out of magic. And everybody that's worked with carbon fiber in the past knows that it does not crack, it shatters like a porcelain plate. So whenever it does fail, it fails quickly and unexpectedly. And because the test depth of 4,000 meters was never actually tested before they brought guests on board, this is one possibility, is that the carbon fiber pressure hull shattered for whatever reason, maybe a defect in the construction. You could speculate all you want about that, but that's one possibility. Also, he hires young, inexperienced technicians. That alone is not a problem. I support that. It's a great idea, especially with inspiring the next generation. But with your young, inexperienced technicians, you have to hire subject matter experts in submarine operations and safety. You have to have that. And a lot of these concerns could have been addressed before you brought guests on board or you took anyone down and lost them at sea, as what appears to have happened here. It did not use lessons learned from NASA and the aviation community, as he stated he did in that interview, because he's locking people in a cylinder, in a capsule, if you will, with no way to get out, with oxygen being fed into it, and possibly a high oxygen environment resulting in a fire.
That's what I was talking about before.
And once there's a fire, there isn't any way
for them to get out.
There's no emergency air breathing that I'm aware of. There's no pictures of it. There's no mention of it in the stat sheet, data sheet. So the test depth, like I said, was not verified. The atmosphere life support system, there's not enough details on that to really make a judgment. I would love to know more as to how they monitored life support and how they scrubbed the CO2 and other toxins like hydrogen and carbon monoxide. All that stuff takes equipment to do that. And if they're just dumping oxygen into this environment, by the time an hour and 40 minutes went by, they would have a high oxygen environment, just like Apollo 1. All right. There's no way to ventilate, that I'm aware of, the pressure hull. So once it does have a toxic gas or smoke, there's no way to get rid of it other than to surface and open the hatch.
And so you get the idea. It's one thing after another. There are a bunch of them. I just wanted to play you a little bit of it. I thought that was a pretty clean breakdown. I mean, even allowing for the fact that some of these things like the carbon fiber pressure hull may not be compromised at all. It seemed as though their communication redundancies were pretty weak. I mean, but apparently you do regularly lose communications with this thing. But the idea somehow that, during testing, apparently, communication losses were typical. So you're getting on board a vessel, you're going to a depth at which you are going to be unrecoverable, and there will be unrescuable, if that's a word. And it's clear based on testing, and the other thing that is becoming clear in just reading about this thing is that they didn't do a ton of testing on this vessel. This is one of the reasons it wasn't certified, and you're signing away all of these on the release forms, all of these legal recourses that you might have should something happen. But there it is, the inside of the vessel. And in testing, you are losing communications. So the idea somehow that the navigability of this, which has to be a ding word if I even said it right, and the is questionable because it's not navigating on its own. It's being told by the surface vessel where to go. And then with that, it really is a, Nintendo joystick setup. They are taking this craft to those depths and to those coordinates that they're told from the surface vessel above. But if you lose communication, you are literally in the dark. It is like outer space down there. So this is a tragedy, and the sadness that punctuates all of this to me is a brutal sadness, But I'm going to say something else, and now let me just sound like the lib that you guys all expect me to be. I'm a complicated lib. I always feel I'm a tree hugger, but as you know, I'm tough on law and order, and I think we're all a combination of any number of things. But now let me say a libby lib thing. The awoke thing. Let me be woke for a moment. It's remarkable how we focus on this, and it's a compelling story. And a little bit later, I'll tell you the two movies that could be done about this. One would be a European version, and I'll give you what that would be. And then I'll give you an American version of this movie, okay? Based on true events type thing. Because this is absolutely literary, this story. And that's maybe one of the reasons it's so compelling. People who come to this situation with so much, right? They're billionaires, they're scientists, they're aviators, they're experts in Titanic history, and they go to this famous/infamous place, which has been the underwater tomb for so many, and they themselves end up there. It's eerie and chilling. But there was a major migrant vessel that drowned, how many, Kim, you can tell me, hundreds off the coast of Greece. And you don't see that being played as a lead story on every network newscast, do you? Hundreds of people died, at sea on this migrant vessel, and we don't talk about it. Now, again, there are a lot of reasons. I think the reasons are cultural, but I think the reasons, while cultural, aren't always so good. So, danger on the high seas, for sure. And I hope for a miracle. Sadly, I think we may not be getting a miracle.
The Mark Thompson Show.
And by the way, 3 scenarios probably cover what happened to the Titanic, to the Titan submersible. Only one carries much chance of survival. And here they are. The Titan may be bobbing around the surface waiting to be found is one. That would be the best case scenario, right? By the way, how come there isn't a homing device of some kind on that vessel? Kim, can you answer that question?
No, you would think that there would be. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't get it.
Kim, how are you?
I have to say I was given hope when I saw last night that there was banging heard every half an hour for a certain amount of time. So I guess, when you think about the vast nature of the search area, just because they heard a sound doesn't mean they're going to find these folks in time.
And they heard a sound from these aircraft. I mean, the technology associated with this is kind of wild.
And you mentioned the Greece thing. I just wanted to mention, I looked it up because it happened 4 days ago. So I wanted to get the numbers right. And currently, more than 300 Pakistanis died trying to get to Greece.
Right.
So, and 88, there are many more still missing. Yeah.
And so you see that happened contemporaneously with this other story, but we don't hear much about the migrant story because this story is sexier, frankly, And as I say, just culturally, I think there's just not the same sense of priority assigned to that story. Anyway, vessels like the Titan are, thank you for that, Kim. Vessels
Kim,
like the Titan are usually designed to either drop weights or inflate floaters automatically to bring them back to the surface if something goes wrong. The dive of the Titan submersible usually takes about 8 hours, including descent and ascent. And they've searched, as Kim was reporting yesterday, an area around the size of Connecticut. And the other scenario, besides it popping to the surface and just sort of waiting to be discovered, and remember, that hatch can only be opened from the outside. Those bolts. So even if they were, in a way, imagine bobbing on the water, you're there, and you're running out of oxygen, and there's no way simply to open the hatch. I mean, that's just...
And that is why when they had to sign away I understand I could die, the form also said, I understand this could cause major mental trauma. Can you imagine being stuck in there in a little area where there's not even a seat? You're just sitting there cross-legged with 5 other people, and you're stuck in this metal cylinder. That's it.
No, it's brutal. I mean, I couldn't sit. I can't take an MRI. I don't know how anybody can do this. But the sense of adventure and the sense of wonderment and the sense of exploration, these are all things that motivate people. And, I'm sure they felt excited about their technology, but clearly there were many flaws. We've told you before, it's $250,000 a ticket on board. It has suffered a catastrophic implosion, is the other possible scenario. If it is not bobbed back up to the surface, the submersible has likely been the victim of a catastrophic failure, according to engineers who are experts in submarines and such things. It could be due to a power failure, they say, also a chance of a small fire from an electrical short circuit, which may have compromised the vehicle's electronic systems. The worst case scenario is that the pressure hull was breached, leading to a catastrophic implosion. It would happen quite quickly, they say. There would be little chance of surviving. And finally, there's a possibility, and we spoke of this, and I kind of alluded to it before when I was saying it's at such a deep level, that the submersible has become entangled in the wreckage of the Titanic. 2 experts said that another scenario was this. A likely scenario was that the Titan could still be intact and its passengers still alive, but the vessel may have become stuck near the bottom of the ocean and have gotten tangled in the wreckage of the Titanic. It lies at about 12,500 feet. It's powered by electric thrusters that can carry 5 people to a depth of 13,123 feet, according to their website, the Ocean Gate website. But there are parts of the Titanic, quote, all over the place. It's dangerous, said Frank Owen, a retired Royal Australian Navy official and a project director for submarine escape and rescue. He says it's surrounded by debris. Talking about Titanic now. The seabed is very difficult. Very few vessels can get that deep, and certainly not divers, he said. So that's the last wrap on that. Unless, Kim, you have something else. I feel like those three scenarios, they summarize it. I told you about Chris Brown, the 61-year-old who is a friend of these guys. Hamish's friend, I think, actually. And he turned down the trip after putting down a deposit on it because of safety concerns. Go ahead.
What I thought was interesting about Chris Brown, who turned down that trip, was that he and his buddy who went on the trip, Hamish, were on Richard Branson's private island, Necker Island, when they discussed going and decided to put down their down payment on this. And I just thought, and here he is, it's Chris Brown and Sir Richard Branson. But I just thought that was interesting how all these billionaires, they're hanging out together on a private island talking about going down in this submersible. I mean, this is who these guys are. They're looking for the next fun, interesting thing to do. Oh,
yeah,
rollers and
we're just trying to pick out a movie for the weekend, and these guys are talking about, well, you know what we ought to do? We ought to build a submersible. We'll charge everybody $250,000 to $300K to go down with us. No, man. I'm going to go into space. I'm going to go into space. Outer space. That's the story on that. And it's a sad story.
What are they smoking on Necker Island? I don't even know what's happening out there.
Yeah. All right. Necker Island, everyone. There you go. I hope for all of you, you get a chance to overnight there.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I know one person who's been there. That's him. Kim's News and the great Rothmann next. Smash the like button like a boss if you'd be so kind.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Yeah, with your iron rod. It's a good way to go.
You know someone who's been to Necker Island?
Yes, I do.
I want to run in your circles.
Yeah, I do. Well, I was not invited. But
there's never been anything like this.
Yeah, there really hasn't. I will tell you that I recall that Branson, and I'll just tell you this quickly in 30 seconds, Branson was doing a show like The Apprentice for Fox, okay? And so my friend greenlit the show, and because he's now doing a back and forth with Branson during the greenlighting of the show and planning the show, Branson invited him to Necker Island, and that is how you curry favor with the billionaire. So, all right, Rothmann next. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this?
We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. Let's start with the efforts to find this submersible. As Mark mentioned, it's a sad situation. The search efforts for the missing vessel used to explore the Titanic are now intensifying. The U.S. Coast Guard says 10 search assets will be on the scene some 900 miles off the coast of Cape Cod by this morning. The underwater noises were heard, but the Coast Guard says searches have yet to yield any results. Attorney General Merrick Garland, here he is pushing back now against accusations of bias within the Justice Department following the Hunter Biden plea agreement. Garland pressed during a news conference today to address accusations from Republicans that Hunter Biden received a sweetheart deal while former President Trump has been criminally indicted. Garland noted the U.S. attorney in Delaware tasked with investigating Hunter Biden was appointed under the Trump administration and has full authority on how to handle that case. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is warning against a vote, warning his conference, I should say, against forcing a vote to impeach President Biden. They're trying to do it. CNN reports McCarthy urged House Republicans to vote against the resolution brought forward by Colorado Congresswoman Lauren Boebert during a closed-door meeting today. He says Republicans should allow committee investigations into Biden to play out, as jumping to impeachment could threaten the GOP's slim majority. The Federal Trade Commission is now suing Amazon. Yeah, it alleges the e-commerce giant got millions to sign up for Amazon Prime through manipulative means. Do you feel manipulated? Did you sign up for Amazon Prime? Think you got twisted there? Didn't know what you were getting into? Well, the Federal Trade Commission is accusing Amazon of using dark pattern tactics used to get customers to stay subscribed or enrolled in a service. Dark patterns could include strategies such as hiding an unsubscribe link in a very hard to find spot. I haven't gone looking for it. I haven't tried to unsubscribe. Is it one of those hidden things? I don't know. Here, unsubscribe here. No, here. No, here. Wait, what? Where is it? 2 lifeguard towers painted in celebration of the LGBTQ community Pride Month vandalized in Santa Monica. The 2 towers on Ginger Rogers Beach were unveiled Saturday and Monday. Their windows were smashed. According to officials, nothing is missing. A police report's been filed, but it's still being determined whether this vandalism. No, don't.
No, that's not the kind of smashing we do. Please.
Come on. Yeah. No, we don't want to smash it.
No.
Yeah, they again. They're unveiled on a Sunday, and then on Monday they're completely trashed.
Yeah.
This, I'll say it again.
Hate doesn't sleep late. They get up early to get that hate going.
And this, this is why we can't have the nice things. Over and over again, people break the things. So I don't know. Trump and DeSantis campaigns now trading attacks over coronavirus policies. No. There's a new ad from the Trump campaign accusing Florida Governor Ron DeSantis of shutting down businesses and driving away tourism in his state during the pandemic, labeling the governor as Lockdown Ron. A new nickname has emerged. Lockdown Ron. Yeah. The DeSantis campaign hit back, rolling out its own video with a compilation of clips of former President Trump praising Florida for staying open during the pandemic. Can you have it both ways? DeSantis imposed a lockdown in Florida April 1st of 2020, later than most governors in the U.S., and then started reopening the state on April 29th. So that's kind of a 1-month shutdown. I don't know.
Yeah.
Speaking of COVID, though, there's this Cal Poly student in San Luis Obispo suing the university and local health officials after refusing to follow COVID regulations on campus. His name is Elijah Behringer. He says in the suit, the school and county public health department violated his civil rights. He questions the legitimacy of the pandemic, claims the school failed to get informed consent for the use of masks, vaccines, and testing. He has been on indefinite leave of absence after refusing testing or vaccination, won't wear a mask on campus. He is representing himself and seeks tuition and legal fees. I don't think he's graduating this year.
Wow.
I don't
know. He knows what he wants. He's got a list of demands.
And lastly, I'll get Mr. Trump away. I will say that California is not that patriotic. It's very upsetting to find out that we didn't rank very high in this story compared to the rest of the nation, done by, the very respected institution Wallet Hub.
You cannot say you love your country.
Yeah,
they put out a list of the 2023 most patriotic states in America. They assessed things like military enlistment, civilian engagement, the number of people who voted in the 2020 presidential election, number of AmeriCorps volunteers per capita. Arkansas is considered the least patriotic. California ranked 37th. Virginia is the most patriotic. So
what is it based on?
You cannot say you love America.
I don't understand why.
So they looked at the numbers of military
patriotic people, military. Okay,
military enlistment,
right?
Civilian engagement, the number of people who voted in the 2020 presidential election, and the number of AmeriCorps volunteers per capita.
Okay, those are not unreasonable categories.
Oh, they really aren't. I mean, if you're going to have some basis for patriotism, those are pretty good.
I don't know if that is the basis for patriotism, but those aren't bad places to start. Activism can take all kinds of forms. We'll ask John Rothman, the true patriot that John Rothman is. I'm sure he has some.
Listen to me. I
37.
don't want to hear you.
Okay, all right.
One could argue that if you're not voting in the election, if you're not exercising your rights to make the country a better place, then you're not loving it. You're not very patriotic.
There are a lot of reasons not to vote. I mean, by the way, there's no justification. But I mean, I think people may feel in California, hey, it's a foregone conclusion. But you don't just vote for president, of course.
37th. You know what, California? You can do better. Try harder. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
Joe Fish, Sal the Shoemaker, Joe Box, and Little Anthony.
Their envy wonton killing. I don't know what a wonton killing is. I'm going to have to look that one up.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Yeah, we are here for a Wednesday, everybody. Glad to have you in the mix. If you missed it, yesterday was a big day. We celebrated we finally found the 11,700.
I just want to find 11,780.
We're now up to 11,793 subscribers. I know it's a weird thing to watch it so closely, but our next goal is way off in the distance. It's 20,000. So you can feel free to take the next year off. It'll be a while, I suspect. This guy is picking up all kinds of followers for his new podcast, which he does. A daily podcast. The Sage, the sexy beast from San Francisco. How about it for John Rothman? Rothman, you've joined the podcast crew, huh?
I have. For those who want to listen, it's Around the Political World with John Rothman, Monday through Friday. Never more than 10 minutes. It's a quick shot, and I'm enjoying it immensely, and the response has been overwhelming. And I want to thank Mark Thompson and the crew, because you guys have been very helpful, very supportive, and we've used some of our segments, I understand, and now being posted. So thanks very much, Mark.
Of course, we are connected to you. We share
Can
a lot
I
of
make one comment quickly
Please.
about what's happening now at the floor of the ocean? Those of you who are old San Franciscans will remember Playland at the beach. And you will remember an attraction called the Diving Bell. Now, you can Google it, Mark. It's very short, and you can even play it. The Diving Bell, and it shows the descent. Once all the kids got in, it went down, and you thought you were under the ocean, and really you were submerged, and then it popped to the top, and it was an amazing sensation. But I can tell you the Diving Bell, I don't think is remembered by many, but it was very much like the experience that they must be feeling. It was very.
Have you found it, Kim or Albert? Can you find the Diving Bell, the thing that to which Mr. Rothman is referring?
I just Googled it. It was right there. The Diving Bell Playland at the beach, and it's about a 1-minute clip of the kids getting in, and they had an adult there too. The door closing, it's sinking and then bobbing to the surface. And it's very
Google it. Well, find it, enjoy it, and it will. Sadly, I think Albert's found it. Of course, Albert does great work.
Can we take a second just to watch that? There it is.
Yeah, Albert.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah.
See, they're all
people
going
getting on.
in.
Mm-hmm.
They're all going in, and you'll see the last person in.
Look how the ladies are dressed up. Everybody dressed up back then.
Can I watch?
Look at the guy who's closing them in.
Right. They send in an adult. Now watch as it descends.
Here it is.
There's never been anything like this.
Descending bell into the water. Now completely covered by
You're really
waters of San
fully
Francisco
submerged,
Bay.
and you could see
That's
fish
not fake.
swimming around. And
That's
there it comes
real.
up.
Oh, then it does pop up. Yes, very impressive. Rothmann with and that was at Playland. What did that cost? Do you remember? A nickel, a quarter?
It was nothing. I mean, it was ridiculous. But I can tell you, I do recall once when it got stuck and everyone was laughing. And of course, then it popped up. But had it stayed on the bottom, it would have been something. But it's interesting, Mark, because I can still remember. I can still remember the feeling of claustrophobia.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know how these people are doing this. As I said, I can't even do an MRI. It is true. Phineas, I agree with this. The guy who is on board with them looks like Barney Fife in that shot. He has the, Andy, I'm going to go down with the. All right, let's run for Brother Rothmann. A little bit of the Brett Baer back and forth related to Trump and personnel within the Trump administration. Then I want to get your reactions specifically to a question about this. Go ahead, Albert. Thank you very much.
In 2016, you said that. I'm going to surround myself with only the best and most serious people.
Well, I did do that.
This
and we
time,
had tremendous, look, we had the best economy we've ever had.
This
The world
time
has ever seen.
Your Vice President, Mike Pence, is running against you.
Yeah.
Your Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, she's running against you. Your former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said he's not supporting you. You mentioned National Security Advisor John Bolton. He's not supporting you either. You mentioned Attorney General Bill Barr, says you shouldn't be president again. Calls you the consummate narcissist and troubled man. You recently called Barr a gutless pig. Your second defense secretary is not supporting you, called you irresponsible. This week, you and your White House called your White House Chief of Staff, John Kelly, weak and ineffective and born with a very small brain. You called your acting White House Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, a born loser. You called your first Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, dumb as a rock, and your first Defense Secretary, James Mattis, the world's most overrated general. You called your White House Press Secretary, Kayleigh Canadian, milquetoast, and multiple times you've referred to your Transportation Secretary, Elaine Chao, as Mitch McConnell's China-loving wife. So why did you hire all of them in the first place?
Because I hired 10 to 1 that were fantastic. We had a great economy. We had phenomenal people in charge of the economy. We had phenomenal people in the military. I'm not a fan of Milley, and I'm not a fan of certain of the television people, but I knocked out ISIS. I defeated ISIS. They said, Mattis, it would take 3 years, and I don't think we can do it. I did it in a period of like 4 weeks.
There's a lot of people who praise you for your policies. I just said that.
That's true. Well, I mean, you just went through a list. But don't forget, for everyone you say, I had 10 that love us. And one thing happens,
that's first of all, sorry about the audio being a little low, but the interview with Brett Baer was, I think, damaging by any objective sort of evaluation. But John, you know that the true Trumpies view everything he says as truthful, and they rally around. It's a true cult of personality. I wonder if you could speak to the broader electorate and whether or not exchanges like this and the way that the early campaigning is going, with Christie attacking him and with slowly the kind of support that he's enjoyed beginning to erode, whether that will have any effect at all and how you handicap this entire thing, exchanges like that one, and how the campaign is going.
First of all, I watched Brett Baer's interview over 2 nights. It was excellent. He really did a good job. And this exposes Donald Trump. Here's the key. He can never be wrong. He can never be wrong. He can never make a mistake. And that is the vulnerability of any politician, because anytime you think you're right all the time, believe me, you're in trouble. But will it affect Republican voters? The latest polls, and I've seen the CNN poll this morning, shows a slight drop, but a very slight drop. Remember, and this is the key, the struggle is to win the nomination. Once you win the nomination, you're on the ballot for the November election. Today, Donald Trump absolutely defeats any potential Republican challenger. He dropped, I think, 5 points. It's nothing. He's still going to have a 30% base. And the 2 areas where we have to look very carefully will be Iowa and New Hampshire. And if he wins in Iowa and New Hampshire, he will be the Republican nominee for president of the United States. So, Mark, don't ask for a rational response. It is the Trump syndrome. And I'm going to be talking about that on my own podcast, but I can tell you that it is a syndrome that is profoundly disturbing.
The reality of this campaign is on all sides, I think, related oftentimes, and the GOP has made such effective political hay through the years with this, cultural wedge issues. One that was foisted upon them, but it's their own doing, is the extreme position the Supreme Court took and has allowed this overturning of Roe, so women's reproductive freedoms are no longer guaranteed in this country.
May I just say to you, you're absolutely
Please.
right. This is a one-year anniversary of the overthrow of Roe, and the argument that is being made is fascinating. And you're hearing the Republicans saying this repeatedly. It should be returned to the states. Well, let me just pose this question. If after Brown versus the Board of Education, the Republicans or anyone had cried it should be returned to the states, let the states decide, you know that the country, at least the South, would have remained heavily segregated. The simple truth is there has to be a standard. And the Republicans have now really put themselves in a real bind. They are losing votes. They are losing votes deservedly. And I believe, and people can think I'm crazy, but I think I'm right, the lesson of Wisconsin rings true. In Wisconsin, a conservative former Supreme Court justice ran against another jurist, and the jurist who ran as a Republican, basically, advocating for the overthrow of Roe v. Wade, was defeated overwhelmingly in Wisconsin. Why is that critical? Because Wisconsin is a bellwether state. I know we're going to talk about the transgender ruling. That also is going to be critical. And I listen, by the way, very carefully to Fox. Please notice I don't call it news. That would be an oxymoron. But I do listen to Fox to hear where they're going with this. And I do not think it is a wedge issue, which is a winning issue. The issue that will dominate in terms of social issues is the question of a woman's right to choose. Please note, I did not say abortion. I said a woman's right to choose. And women across this country, whether they're for or against, believe they should have the right to control their own bodies.
Right. Arkansas, the decision by the federal judge there that you're referring to was involving trans care, trans freedoms, essentially, freedoms to use puberty blockers, for example, and even trans surgeries for minors. This is controversial, John, and it's by no means clear that this is a right-left issue. I think there are people on the left who have an issue with this situation involving minors. That is to say, minors seeking puberty blockers and surgery, and then
right.
there are people, and so it's a mix. Okay, this is not left-right. This is a major ruling, though, by this federal judge in Arkansas, which is not exactly a lefty state.
No, you're absolutely right. It's going to be an issue. But I do believe that the transgender issue will not transcend the question of a woman's right to choose. I think that is going to be the critical issue. But there are a lot of social issues which could be raised. Look, we all know now that the question of playing on sports teams, when you talk about transgender, is a major issue in a lot of communities. But I have to tell you, Mark, and I really believe this, in the end, the American people will not vote for an extreme position. I think that's absolutely true.
The podcast is Around the Political World with John Rothmann. It's daily. And look at you. Every day you kick it out. How does that go, John? You do it first thing in the morning?
Yes, I get up about 7 o'clock in the morning to do the recording. It's posted by 9 o'clock, sometimes a little earlier. I have a producer, Go-Go Zoger, who's doing just a great job. And it's received a phenomenal response. My understanding is that we have thousands of listeners now. And I must say, again, that those of you who listen to the Mark Thompson program, feel free to tune into what I'm doing. It's a wonderful thing. And I will always continue, Mark, to join you on Wednesdays, at least.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Listen to that. Wow. That is his pledge. Going forward, we want to be able to support you any way we can. John, we appreciate your contributions and your take. And as I've told you before, I'm exploiting you because the audience loves you, and now they have a place to find you. So As the field of the GOP begins to, you've sort of just reviewed it for all of us that regardless of what happens, regardless of how many Brett Baer interviews get rolled out, and regardless of how many wedge issues and regardless essentially of how much incoming fire Donald Trump takes, he will likely be the GOP nominee. And then you feel it's likely he'll lose the general because of a lot of these independent voters who may gravitate toward issues like Roe that they have seen his Supreme Court rule on. What happens if Joe Biden doesn't make it to the general?
All right, back up for 1 second. We're doing a snapshot in time. That is to say, what would happen today? Trump would be the nominee. We're going to see an indictment coming from the federal government on January 6th. We are going to see the indictment coming out of Georgia. We are going to see continued questions, including the August 14th deadline, which we are now told is at least a preliminary date for the trial that will take place. I don't think it'll take place on the 14th. But the point is, there are a whole series of things happening all the way up that are absolutely remarkable. So Donald Trump does not have a clear shot. What you said earlier applies, and that is he has a core group of followers who are going to follow him to the ends of the earth. Remember what he said. He could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue, and he would still hold those voters. Now, you ask about Joe Biden. There was a major development today when Joe Biden last night at a fundraiser talked about the Chinese leadership, the president of China, as a dictator. And of course, it caused waves because Anthony Blinken had just met, our Secretary of State had just met with the Chinese president. Look, you have to be careful what you say in terms of diplomacy. And it's very clear that Joe Biden has a contest. Let me just explain what that means. Anything could happen to Joe Biden, health-wise, politically, whatever it may be. The Hunter Biden case, which we haven't even touched on yet, is a major issue for the Republicans. It is not a major issue for the Democrats at this point. And remember that all the accusations which you heard on Fox that Joe Biden was the beneficiary of a $5 million bribe. I want to say that again, a $5 million bribe. Yet there is no evidence. There is no compelling evidence. There is nothing that has been turned up by the Republicans in the House who are doing the investigation. Let me be crystal clear. Anything can happen politically. But at this moment, the Republican Party is stuck because they can't desert Donald Trump because they're afraid they'll lose his supporters, and they can't embrace him because he's got that problem. And Joe Biden, if the Democrats should find an open field, first, let's talk about the fact that Kamala Harris is the successor. She's the vice president, and no matter what people may say about her, she would become president of the United States of America. What happens if there is a real contest for the Democratic nomination? Well, Bobby Kennedy Jr. is now polling at 20%. Bobby Kennedy Jr., I have to tell you, and I've interviewed him, and I think you've interviewed him as well, is frankly not fit to be president of the United States. He belongs to the anti-vax movement, and his comments about China and Russia are absolutely ridiculous. But the fact that he has that much traction based on his name is very interesting. And let me also say a word about Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom has declared he is going to vote for Joe Biden. But Gavin Newsom is not a candidate at this point. But if something happens, might he run? I don't think he'd run against Kamala Harris, but I think it's one of the things we have to talk about in terms of a fluid system. Let me make one other quick comment, Mark. I know we're running out of time. If this were 1967, I could not have predicted Eugene McCarthy running for the presidency. I could not have predicted Bobby Kennedy jumping in and being assassinated. I could not have predicted Martin Luther King being assassinated. I could not have predicted, even though I worked for him, Richard Nixon actually winning the election. So one of the things we learned from our history is that it's fluid. It's completely fluid. And
John, McCarthy, who you mentioned, he ran third party?
No, not in 1968. He contested for the Democratic nomination for president and actually came close, very close, to defeating Lyndon Johnson in
And
New
he
Hampshire.
didn't then default to a third-party run?
No, he did not.
Okay.
He ran as a third-party candidate.
Who were the third-party candidates back when third-party? You had
George Wallace.
George
Wallace,
Wallace,
the American Independent Party. George Wallace, American Independent Party, ran in 1968 and carried 5 states in the South. It was
didn't John Anderson or somebody like that run third party?
1980. John Anderson, who was a Republican, who had sought the Republican nomination for the presidency in 1980. You may recall he scored big when in New Hampshire he came out in favor of gun control. And that's when everything came together for him. Then he ran as a third-party candidate for president, and he took a Democrat, former governor of Wisconsin, Pat Lucey, as his running mate, but he scored no electoral votes at all.
Well, third parties in this country, if we're not set up for it, we're set up in a two-party system. You can get in as a third-party candidate, but you can't win as a third-party candidate, so you can really only act as a spoiler.
Trivia question for you, Mark. Who was the last third-party candidate to be elected president of the United States?
Oh, I have no idea. What is he?
Abraham Lincoln, 1860.
Is that right? He was third party?
The
wow.
Republican Party was a third
Abraham Lincoln
party.
right behind me here.
Oh, there he is, yeah.
Thank you, the likeness of...
all I can tell you is and in those days, the Democrats split in 3. There was a Southern Democratic Party, was the National Democratic Party, and there was a third party called the Unionists. And so Lincoln crept in because of that.
We should get back to dividing the country up like that, don't you think, John?
No. You know, you would have been a Confederate for sure, Mark Thompson.
No, I promise you that's not true. I'd be a rebel of some kind, but I would not be a Confederate. We love you, John Rothman. Congratulations on the podcast. We'll keep mentioning it and feeding all the listeners we can over there around the world with John Rothman, and we appreciate your take on things on Wednesdays. Bye, John Rothman.
See you next week. Thank you.
Yeah, look forward to it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I come from regular stock.
I just want to find 11,780.
Did you really just do that? ABC knows that I feel like this. I've told them. It had nothing to do with them.
May the Spirit guide you in wisdom and grace.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
It was great. I loved it.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Can you let him finish, sir?
Excited for hour 2. If you thought hour 1 was good, smash the like button.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Hour 2 is going to be even better. We've got a law and disorder, which involves the sentencing of a J6 rioter. And this isn't just any J6 rioter. What this guy did will get him prison time, and he does get prison time. More information on the corrupt Supreme Court. Corrupt to the core. And a bizarre Bay Area story with a couple of wrinkles. And an attempt to throw out and disbar a Trump lawyer. All of them make Law and Disorder. And I even have a Law and Disorder flashback, which you won't believe.
What?
So all of that's still to come. Smash the like button like a boss.
Did you really just do that?
Yeah, I really did, baby. I really did. Oh, the O. Always loving it. All right. Big hour 2 ahead. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. We love them. Why are you yelling red? Best wine out there right now. Gotta
Yes,
say.
I must confess.
Why are you yelling?
Yeah.
I had a bottle last night, which is why I was a little slow to answer the bell.
Mm-hmm.
I was in. John Rothmann gets up at 7, he says. I wish I could sleep till 7. I've got all those sports injuries. I get that Tenuta wine just to ease me to bed, you know. Makes everything a little clearer. It's so delicious.
Did you hit that
our
why are you
special blend.
yelling red a little too hard last night?
I
don't know.
might have hit it too hard. I might have.
Why are you yelling?
I just am saying it. But you don't know you've hit it hard till the next morning.
Yeah,
is the point. But it's such a beautiful wine and a perfect blend. I encourage you to check it out. And I believe they offer you 10% off at checkout on anything, not just that wine. They have all these different varietals.
At the end of this newscast, I'll tell you exactly how you can get the exclusive Mark Thompson Show 10% off.
No, okay.
How's
Well,
that?
I'll stay tuned then. Very good.
Yes. But for now, the news. House Republicans, of course, are slamming Hunter Biden. The plea agreement on taxes with the plea agreement on tax charges with federal prosecutors. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer calling it a sweetheart deal that reveals a two-tiered system of justice. Hunter has agreed to plead guilty to tax misdemeanors and enter a diversion agreement related to a gun charge. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but isn't it usually that if you are busted on tax charges, the government would rather have its money than have you in jail?
Oh, that's
So,
absolutely true. 100%.
like,
Yes.
whatever you have done, they would rather you be working to pay them back because it's all about they want their money and all the fines and the fees. They don't necessarily want you sitting in jail unless you've made a deal to pay them and you've reneged or defaulted on your deal, right?
And the truth is, and David Katz can weigh in on this tomorrow because he's our legal ninja, that Kim is right. Oftentimes, part of the agreement is that they'll waive jail time for fees being paid. I mean, it's all about money. I'm not a Hunter Biden fan, but I don't think. I mean, look, you had Donald Trump, you and the GOP had time to investigate Hunter Biden. You and the GOP had time to investigate Hillary Clinton. Don't tell me at the end of those investigations under your administration, your prosecutors, that somehow this isn't sufficient. I mean, Biden, one of the things he did to his credit, I mean, you can say what you want about Joe Biden, but one of the things he did is he laid off of this. He left in place the Trump-selected prosecutor. And this is the deal they made. So, again, the GOP's making hay, and there's a willing GOP audience for all the BS. But the reality is it was a remarkably objective evaluation of both Hunter Biden and Hillary Clinton, and this is what you ended up with. There is no parallel between what Hunter Biden did and the Donald Trump stuff. Although, and let me tell you, and I've said it before, and this is the last thing I'll say, I have no problem if you want to lock up Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden seems like sadly a troubled guy, but a guy who, he's not some upstanding dude. He traded on his name, as does everybody. Look at what Chris Christie has done. Look at what Trump has done with the Saudis. It makes the Hunter Biden thing look like a day at the beach. It's insane the amount of money that is pouring into Donald Trump and Jared Kushner and those around Trump as a result of clearly deals that were made with the Omanis and the Saudis. So don't tell me about Hunter Biden. It doesn't hold a candle to what the last administration has done in terms of corruption.
Yeah, all that. And also, Uncle Sam just wants its money, right?
Thank you. That was the original question, and you're right. Yes.
The White House will welcome the Prime Minister of India today. President Biden and Prime Minister Narendra Modi are expected to announce agreements on a variety of issues, including defense, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing. Some Democrats plan to boycott Modi when he gives a speech to Congress tomorrow in protest against alleged human rights abuses in India.
Yeah, I mean, he's a very problematic figure, Modi, in India, and he's jailed a lot of opposition, and he's at best an embattled figure. He might be a bad guy, is what I would say.
Well, it looks like they're going to protest because they agree with you. So let's talk a little bit about abortion. Why don't we? Senate Democrats plan to mark the 1 year anniversary of the end of Roe v. Wade by bringing legislation on reproductive health and access to a vote. And while the bills are not expected to pass, Democrats want to force Republicans to show where they stand on abortion. Senator Patty Murray of Washington told reporters the bills would guarantee women can travel freely across state lines for abortions, bolster data privacy for health and location data, and protect doctors who continue to provide abortion care. Meanwhile, Federal Reserve Chair, did you have a comment?
Just that, that you have to fight for that freedom is just, it's nauseating to me. And this is,
it's ridiculous.
And that what's clamping down on women's reproductive freedoms is a party that's all about, quote, freedom. I mean, freedom except freedom over your own body, freedom to read what you want, freedom to say what you want, discuss what you want. I mean, it's crazy. So where is the freedom part? I don't get it. I can't say gay. I can't, I can't talk about trans issues. I mean, anything LGBTQ is radioactive, and I'm not allowed to drive across state lines for an abortion or even, and again, I get it. It's really just my decision to, over my own body. I'm not suggesting that everybody wants an abortion, but it's a painful decision that oftentimes is reached, and women should certainly have that right. So this is crazy that you have to campaign for it.
You know what you can have? The one thing they will let you have is the guns. So you go ahead. You can't do all that other stuff, but you go ahead and have your guns and you're all right. Okay.
That is true. Yeah. Thank God for those guns.
Because I don't know what we'd do without them. This is the worst. Okay. Jerome Powell.
think you should apologize for how you feel.
Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell expects more rate hikes. Speaking ahead of a hearing this morning in front of the House Financial Services Committee, he said the central bank is still working to slow inflation, which he said is still running high. Powell said most participants in the Federal Open Market Committee expect it'll be appropriate to raise interest rates somewhat further by the end of the year. A lot of people looking at that I-95. Look at that. When the tanker fire made the roadway collapse. Well, it's set to reopen this weekend in Philadelphia. So they have some fast road work. It is the latest update from the Pennsylvania governor. I-95, of course, collapsed and was shut down earlier this month following this fiery tanker crash, but they whipped it right back into shape and open up it will.
We should get those people who opened up I-95 in such short time. We should get them to build that high-speed rail for us.
That's
how long has that been? How long has that been?
What?
How long has the high-speed rail been underway?
It's been a while, I have to say. Yeah. It's been entirely too long.
I'm starting to think that maybe they're not going to finish that, and it's just all a...
it's all there, black and white, clear as crystal.
That's exactly right. It may not be happening. Anyway, congratulations on getting I-95 open.
Let's go to the Holy Bible now. The Utah school district that banned the Bible from elementary and middle school libraries is returning the good book to library shelves for all students. The board of the Davis School District, just north of Salt Lake City, voted unanimously, now they say, to put the Bible back into place. So, good news for the Bible lovers.
That's good, because you just can't find that Bible anywhere.
You can't. It's very hard to come by.
Yeah, I'm glad they're getting it back out there. It should be there. I believe that all these books should be out there, but I'm just saying that, if you are missing the Bible in one place, you can, you're tripping on Bibles on your way to find other Bibles.
They voted unanimously, the school board, to reverse an earlier decision this month that would restrict the Bible only to high schools after a parent's challenge citing passages describing sex and violence in the Bible.
Wait a minute, what?
Yeah, I know. See, if you're going to ban other books, then you have to ban this one. You see
that's
how that
the
works?
way to get me to read it. I play that up front.
Oh, if there's sex and violence, you're in?
Hey, you don't lead with the commandments. Lead with the stuff people want to hear about.
What are the porn stars doing?
Exactly. Leviticus chapter 5.
Let's go.
Right now it's mating season, and they're hungry.
Exactly. My God.
Get you to church.
Ta-ta.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, talk about back to pregnancy issues for just a moment. The biggest medical association in the US no longer wants health professionals to report pregnant women who abuse drugs. The American Medical Association now believes reporting will discourage pregnant women from actually getting help because they'll be afraid of going to jail or losing custody of their child. And lastly, you may have seen this story. There's a vindictive, horrible. Sorry, that was my personal commentary. A Georgia auto shop owner.
Please try to be a news person for a change.
And fair and balanced
objectivity.
reporting. A Georgia auto shop owner who paid a former employee's final paycheck in oily pennies has been ordered to pay nearly $40,000 in restitution to the employee and other workers.
Right on.
Consent
My
judgment
bad.
against.
I'm sorry.
Right.
A judgment against the owner and AOK Luxury Auto Works ordered the company to compensate the former employees with more than $19,000 each. The judgment is accusing the company of not paying overtime, threatening employees who file labor complaints, and of course, the vindictive oily penny final paycheck.
Wow.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
All right. Well,
I mean, what do you put a pile of pennies and then pour oil on top of them?
yeah,
Or are they...
yeah, because here's your money. Knock yourself out trying to use it.
Ew.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
I am not accepting oily pennies. I just want you to know.
Well, I mean, that was the whole thing. They went to court and they won. Good
Everything
for them.
has a price. If that's $1 million worth of pennies, then I might consider.
You're taking it? You'll just
I might.
wheelbarrow it right out of there? That's it.
I'll take a meeting on it.
Albert will take his payment in whatever form you decide to give it.
I guess.
Back to Tenuta Vineyards sponsoring this newscast. Here's the special exclusive Mark Thompson Show deal. Call Tenuta Vineyards. You say smash it with your iron rod, and you get 10% off at Tenuta in Livermore. TENUTA. And here's the phone number. It's 925-699-4576. So if you want to see what we're talking about when we're just loving this Mark Thompson, why are you yelling red? Give him a call.
Why are you yelling?
Yeah, get your 10% off, smash it with your iron rod, and you're good to go. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
Yes, I'm very unhappy with everything I've heard today on your show.
No, no, no.
You can buy a Movado watch in Sam's.
What can you tell us about the scene?
Dr. Emil Schaffhausen, Versailles.
I've come from regular stock.
Receive the royal scepter. Receive the rod of equity and mercy.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I actually did want to thank a few people before I get to some law and disorder, and I think a rare law and disorder flashback today, which I think you'll like. But there was big news in the world of January 6th rioter who was just sentenced. So I'll share that with you in a moment. I just wanted to acknowledge on our themarkthompsonshow.com, maybe you can put it up the banner, themarkthompsonshow.com, Kim or Albert, because at themarkthompsonshow.com, you can click through to Patreon or PayPal. We are a crowdfunded show, and I just want to spend a moment because people are doing that. They're going there to The Mark Thompson Show. That's our email address, themarkthompsonshow.com, and also the Mark Thompson Show at Gmail is how you reach us. themarkthompsonshow.com takes you to Patreon and PayPal. You get the idea. By going to Patreon and PayPal, you can fund us on an ongoing basis. You can make a one-time contribution, but I just wanted to acknowledge Alexander, who, again, just even at $10 a month makes such a difference, but raised his pledge to $20 a month. And that really does make a difference to us. From $15 to $20 a month, Diane And she's the person who does so many of our graphics, too. From $15 a month to $25 a month from Lee. It just all means so much. These are just some of the changes in those who have been part of the Patreon community. Somebody, Christopher, pledged $1 a month. I'm chuckling, but it really does matter, every little bit. And then I wanted to get to the PayPal people, because again, from the MarkThompsonShow.com, you can click to PayPal as well. And a shadow producer, Calvin Wong, sent us $100.
What?
Yeah, that is extraordinary. So did Robin Fox. Yeah, right on. And Bill.
Big shout out.
Bill Lundgren, also so cool, with a contribution on Patreon as well. Janice and Steve and Larry, Nancy and Scott. Thanks for doing what you do, Scott Miller says. Thank you for the $25, man. Really does matter. And love the show, says Lori North. Donated $100.
I'm not gonna cry.
Wow.
I'm not gonna cry.
Not going to cry, but
People are so kind.
really, really cool. And it goes on. I mean, with Irene and Madeline and Ashley and Brian and Kathleen, Gary and David. Thank you, David. Thanks to you all for still being there, David King says. Thank you, David. David with a $100 contribution.
I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry.
So that's all on PayPal. And you can do PayPal, again, at themarkthompsonshow.com. Click through to Patreon or PayPal to join our community of supporters. We need you. We're essentially a crowd-funded show, and so to meet payroll every month, we need your help. So thank you very much, everybody, and I wanted to just take a moment to acknowledge you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Now, how about it? Let's do some law and disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
Sentencing, as I mentioned, sentencing for a J6 rioter. This isn't just any J6 rioter. This is the guy who electroshocked D.C. Officer Michael Fanone. Daniel D.J. Rodriguez is his name. He was wearing a MAGA hat when he drove a stun gun into the officer's neck while at the Capitol. He was arrested after the online sedition hunters community helped identify him. Well, now, he's gotten 12 and a half years in prison. He traveled to D.C. with fellow Trump supporters who belong to a Telegram group called the Patriots 45 MAGA Gang. He pleaded guilty in February to felony conspiracy, obstruction of an official proceeding, tampering with documents, and inflicting bodily injury on officers using a deadly or dangerous weapon. There will be blood, Rodriguez wrote in the MAGA Gang Telegram chat on the night of January 5th. This was just hours before he attended Trump's rally at the White House Ellipse. Welcome to the revolution, he wrote. On January 6th, after joining the fight in the Capitol's lower west tunnel, where some of the most violent scenes of the day played out, Rodriguez attacked Officer Michael Fanone, later bragging about his actions in the Telegram chat. OMG, I did so much effing S and got away. Rodriguez wrote to fellow members of the Patriots 45 MAGA gang, tased the F out of the blue. U.S. District Judge Amy Berman Jackson imposed Rodriguez's 151-month sentence that just happened hours ago. She said he was a one-man army of hate attacking police officers and destroying property on January 6th. Fanone, speaking, he's the officer, speaking during Rodriguez's sentencing hearing, called Rodriguez's life story pathetic and said he lost his career, friends, and faith in the criminal justice system because of what he went through that day. So
12 and a half years, huh? That's it? I mean, I guess I was hoping maybe when you started the story, I was kind of guessing in my brain what he would get and what I hoped he would get. I was saying 18 years. 12 and a half seems a little bit.
I agree with you. As you know, I feel very much, I'm a law and order guy. I don't mean to always suggest that prison's an answer, but I think that this is an adult. He made big boy decisions, and he, frankly, I think you could argue he tried to kill somebody.
Yeah, absolutely did.
So,
and then went and bragged about it.
Yeah, I think he did get off easily. Fanone went on to say, and again, this just happened hours ago, I don't give an S about Daniel Rodriguez. He ceased to exist to me as a person a long time ago. Any compassion or empathy I felt toward those who laid siege to our capital, whose actions I felt were at least in part influenced by their leader, Donald Trump, and his lies, has been eroded. Eroded by the attacks directed at me and my family by supporters of Donald Trump and the right-wing media. Now, this is important because the point is that day of January 6th wasn't the end of it. The Trump supporters and right-wing media have so created this aura of patriotism around these lawless rioters. I would suggest, again, they attempted to kill people that day, that the hate has continued to spill over onto Fanone, the officer who was attacked that day. Fanone was talking about the special counsel Jack Smith's investigation into Trump's actions leading up to January 6th. And he said, this is Fanone again to the judge, Your Honor, we must all join in the fight against Donald Trump and the destructive, divisive movement he has come to represent. We must offer him no safe harbor, and to his enablers, whether in business, in politics, and the media, give no quarter in the fight to preserve our republic. There can be no spectators. That was from the courtroom today. By the way, Kim, on the actual sentencing, because you know oftentimes prosecutors ask for more time than they actually get, you might be interested to know that the prosecutors wanted 14 years. So it's not too far off of that.
I still think that's too low. I mean, he tased a police officer.
Yeah.
If you've ever read the accounts that Officer Fanone gives, it's harrowing. You see video of what happened to him. 12 and a half years is all this man got. 14 years is all the prosecutors were asking for. I mean, no. This person acted against America. He went out. He tased a cop. He bragged about it, had no remorse. Oh, sorry. You got to go to jail for a lot longer than that.
More than 1,000 people have been charged in connection with the January 6th Capitol attack. As you know, nearly 600 have pleaded guilty. Of the approximately 524 defendants who have been sentenced, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office for D.C., about 310 have been sentenced to periods of incarceration that have ranged from a few days to nearly 2 decades in prison. The sentences continue on a nearly daily basis. I told you about the chiropractor, remember? What a dirtbag he is. David Wells Kaufman, I told you about him last week. He was sentenced to 60 days after admitting that he scuffled with officers inside the Capitol on January 6th, including an officer who died by suicide 9 days later. As you know, I think he should be doing 20 years. Instead, he does 60 days and he does, some community service. The longest sentence for January 6th defendants to date, 18 years, went to Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes, convicted of seditious conspiracy. So that's a little look back at the J6ers and that latest J6er. Pretty disgusting business, but they are continuing to sentence them.
That's frustrating too. 18 years for listen to the charge: seditious conspiracy. I mean, you're trying to undermine the United States of America. Didn't they used to kill people for seditious conspiracy?
And
not that I'm advocating state-sponsored execution, but I'm saying 18 years seems a little lax.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, I think that this is sort of one of those things where, oddly, I think we're allowed to get angry about this. Maybe sentencing guidelines need to be revised. I think you can make a good argument for that. Meanwhile, the corruption at the Supreme Court level continues, and it continues to be revealed by the people at ProPublica. I send ProPublica money. I suggest that anybody who's got a few dollars, you can support them. Justice Samuel Alito took luxury fishing vacations, at least one, with GOP billionaire who later had cases before the court. It was early of July of 2008. Samuel Alito stood on a riverbank in a remote corner of Alaska. He was on a vacation at a luxury fishing lodge that charged more than $1,000 a day. And after catching a king salmon nearly the size of his leg, they say, Alito posed for a picture. To his left in the picture, a man stood beaming. Paul Singer, a hedge fund billionaire who has repeatedly asked the Supreme Court to rule in his favor in high-stakes business disputes. Singer was more than a fellow angler. He flew Alito to Alaska on a private jet. If Alito had chartered it himself, it would have cost more than $100,000 one way. In the years after that, Singer's hedge fund came before the court at least 10 times in cases where his role was often covered by the legal press and mainstream media. In 2014, the court agreed to resolve a key issue in a decade-long battle between Singer's hedge fund and the nation of Argentina. Alito did not recuse himself from that and voted with the 7-1 majority in Singer's favor. The hedge fund was ultimately paid $2.4 billion in that case. By the way, Alito did not report the 2008 fishing trip in his annual, financial disclosures. And by failing to disclose the private jet flight, Alito appears to have violated a federal law that requires justices to disclose these gifts. According to ethics law experts, they're all running afoul of this stuff. Thomas, Alito, and it's just loathsome, but it appears to be business as usual that these justices who are super pals with the super rich who have cases before the court don't recuse themselves. Such trips would be unheard of for the vast majority of federal workers who are generally barred from taking even modest gifts. Leonard Leo, the longtime leader of the Conservative Federalist Society, we've talked about him at length. I've been raving about and raging about Leonard Leo for years now. Before Trump, he has been building this Federalist Society, and they do it so effectively. They do it in a grassroots way. By the time you get to law school, you have a strong contingent of Federalist Society future justices and lawyers. And they are, in my judgment, taking over the justice system. You could say they already have at the Supreme Court level. Leonard Leo, the longtime leader of the Conservative Federalist Society, attended and helped organize that Alaska fishing vacation. He invited Singer to join and asked Singer if he and Alito could fly on the billionaire's jet. So that's what's happening.
It's ridiculous.
In the court. Yeah. What happened with that cell phone being thrown at the concert, Kim?
It smacked the singer right in the face. She dropped to her knees.
Albert, how does she say her last name? The singer.
Rexa.
I'm asking Albert.
I'm answering because I don't know where he is.
Kim, Kim's correct. BB
Why are you
Rexa.
yelling?
Rude.
Kim, you're correct. Thank you for answering. BB Rexa at New York City for a concert got a cell phone thrown at her, and the dude who threw it got arrested. 27 years old. He was arraigned Monday. That's why it's in law and disorder. Arraigned in New York City on misdemeanor charges of harassment and assault. He says he thought it would, quote, be funny. All right. Here's a little bit of what it looked like.
Oh, really nailed her.
It's really brutal, man. Video shared on social media by a concert goer shows the phone striking Resha near her eye. She covers her face and collapses to the ground. She needed stitches. According to the criminal complaint, an unnamed witness told police that he asked who threw the phone, and Malvania allegedly raised his hand and said, I did. Malvania then allegedly said, I was trying to see if I could hit her with the phone at the end of the show because it would be funny. Good times.
Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Nikki was telling me that people throw their phones up on stage during concerts sometimes because they want they want the performer to take a picture or sing into the phone or do something like that and then toss the phone back. So perhaps that was the thought. I don't know.
I'm on the phone.
And now a law and disorder flashback.
What?
It is this story. A man is facing charges after police said they pulled him from a tank under, if you guessed, a woman's toilet. Yeah.
What?
And the woman's toilet was filled with human waste. That's right. That's the ugliest kind of waste. Police said that Gary Moody, 45, was under a log cabin outhouse
Google it.
Off the highway in Albany. And you can imagine those highway outhouses are really probably not
There's a
super
reason
clean to begin
that
with.
this place is fun.
And he parked himself there under that outhouse because he wanted to see women go to the bathroom. It's a very filthy environment, the quote comes from one of the police officers. And before we put anybody in contact with him, we had to decontaminate him. We treated him as if he were a hazardous material.
What was he doing under there? Just trying to see her lady bits?
I think that's
What kind of fetishy, weird, pervy stuff is happening?
Well, it's
What's a guilty pleasure you have?
Exactly.
No,
I think it was sort of in that category. That's your Law and Order flashback, and that's Law and Disorder, Fort.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
An invasion of Mormon insects. That's right. Those are the best kind of insects. They're on their mission. They're God-fearing and God-loving. And we'll tell you that story as we come back. And I may do, Albert, with your blessing, I may do a little mini That's Rich. Would that be okay with you, Albert?
I love that.
All right. So we'll do a mini That's Rich. And I will tell you the
Albert, thank you.
The Mormon crickets story because it is it's a bizarre one. Yes.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
It really is. Smash the like button
with your iron
like
rod.
a boss. Smash it hard. Give us the thumbs up. It costs you nothing. And it means so much in a way that I still don't understand.
Smash it with your iron rod.
All right. Much to do. Thanks for being here, Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I'm Kim McAllister on the Mark Thompson Show. The U.S. Coast Guard and search crews are intensifying their efforts now to find this missing submarine that had been used to explore the Titanic wreckage. Crews have been searching for the submersible with 5 people aboard since it was reported overdue on Sunday.
By the way, Kim, I don't mean to interrupt,
Please.
but I found out, and I didn't know this, what's the difference between a submersible and a submarine? You cannot.
Kim, how are you?
The difference is, and I'm sure our audience knows, that apparently a submarine is something that can navigate underwater on its own. So, in other words, it's untethered to anything, right? Mm-hmm. The submersible has to be in communication, I guess. It needs a surface vessel in order for it to know where it's going and all this. The submarine is completely self-contained. It's sort of like that. That's my understanding. So I know. Thank you. I saved the universe with that explanation. Mark, was that important enough to interrupt Kim's news? Yeah, I thought it was. How many chances are we going to have to actually explain the distinction between a submarine and a submersible?
I think it's the most valuable thing said on the show today. We have all learned.
Yeah, one of them needs an Xbox controller. The other one needs just...
Come on, that's Albert, everybody.
Albert,
he just woke up. It's terrific. All right.
But lastly, on that story, the Coast Guard has not been able to identify underwater noises, kind of banging noises that were heard every half hour for a time. And they have not been able to identify exactly what those noises were or where they were coming from. A special investigator for the Department of Justice says the FBI acted negligently by opening a full investigation onto former President Trump's 2016 campaign. John Durham told lawmakers today the FBI should have opened a preliminary investigation into a possible connection between Russia and the Trump campaign instead of a full investigation. Durham also accused the FBI of confirmation bias. In Oakland, the Catholic Diocese of Oakland, trying to keep the names of priests who abuse children a secret. They filed a motion in federal court to keep the names of those who protected abusers hidden. The church's attorney says it's to avoid the risk of identity theft and harassment, but doesn't sit well with accusers who say it's just more of the same pattern of secrecy. It's been the problem all along with the Catholic Church.
The accusers are 100% correct, right?
Yep,
I mean, there's no question about it. So the first thing you do is cover it up. The second thing you do is you move them around, these priests. This is historically what's happened. I mean, by the dozens, by the hundreds, by the thousands, this happened. And then finally, when it comes to, and you say, we'll take care of it. Can you imagine if any other organization where there's literally there are people sodomizing children, and you say, we'll take care of it on our own. Don't worry about it, police, and don't worry about it, law. We'll take care of it ourselves. No, you won't. It's a crime against society, and we will take care of it. Anyway,
we have to be done with it, and we have to take care of it. Absolutely.
And now the Catholic Church is saying we don't want their names released. Yet, if you're guilty of a sexual offense, they can make you register as a sex offender, but not these priests. It's outrageous.
The survivors
but right on brand. Brand.
Survivors of clergy sexual abuse attending the hearing on Tuesday pointed out Oakland Bishop Michael Barber, despite claims of transparency and concern for victims, has failed to release important information even on recent cases, not just the ones from decades ago, but recent cases. Aerojet Rocketdyne will develop an advanced propulsion solution for a long-range maneuverable fires missile system that Lockheed Martin is developing for the U.S. Army. The missile is a precision fires missile that will launch from existing launchers at much longer ranges than current missiles for that system. Aerojet Rocketdyne CEO and President Eileen Drake said in addition to providing troops the edge in offensive operations, this is extended range missile will serve as a powerful deterrent, promising effective strike capabilities from long ranges. Predicted surge of illegal immigrants at the southern border, it's kind of fizzled out. The latest federal numbers show a decrease in May. Encounters would be with would-be asylum seekers were down 25% compared to 1 year ago. Most apprehensions happened before a public health rule called Title 42 was lifted. After, it slowed to a trickle. Most were single men. Encounters with unaccompanied kids went down about 13%, but seizures of dangerous drugs went up 10% in May. Something happened this morning in Paris. Look at that. France's national network, BFM TV, reporting at least 16 people are hurt after a gas explosion in Paris. 7 of the injured in critical condition here. The explosion happened in the city's busy Latin Quarter. So this massive gas explosion just tore apart that building.
Jeez.
We have lost a very important distinction that we really love to bitch about in California. Now, drivers in the state of Washington are celebrating the official start of summer with America's most expensive gas prices. Yep, no longer California, the state of Washington. Congratulations, we pass the torch proudly on to you.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. Wow.
The average cost of regular gas in Washington state has jumped by 32% over the last month to $4.93 a gallon, according to AAA. It is 7 cents ahead of California, notorious for high prices for everything, especially gas. Not anymore. There you go, Washington. Welcome to the party. And Roblox. Have you ever, this Roblox, popular with the kids. My kids can't get enough of it. They'll now allow creators to build expensive experiences, that feature mature content for users that are at least 17 years old.
What?
No Roblox. Bad. The experiences and content may contain violence, romantic themes, depictions of blood, and alcohol. That's nice.
Wow.
Yeah. In order to create or view such content, Roblox will require users to upload a selfie and a photo of their government-issued ID. It's that bad that you need to upload a selfie and your ID. No.
I don't know what goes on there, but it's nothing. Yeah.
I protest. Roblox, I protest. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
I stand corrected. I misspoke. My words upset so many people. My bad. I'm sorry.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
Joe Fish, Sal the Shoemaker, Joe Box, and Little Anthony.
What he's got going here is a situation. There's a reason that this place is fun.
Someone did this to spoil our Christmas. I have never heard of something like that.
There is nothing in our history that quite compares to this.
Nobody has ever put something like this together that I've ever seen.
We've never seen anything like it before.
I have a busy week.
I think I'm the most honest human being, perhaps, that God ever created.
God bless America. The end.
Girl, you just rude.
Do I hit it long? Is Trump strong? Huh?
Who is having that conversation?
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
The science is ridiculous.
It's fantastic.
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Doesn't anybody bet a weed?
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Seriously, what the
What up, everybody? This is like we're right around turn 4. We're coming into the big finish. Thanks for being here. We want to get right to it. We've got Albert, we've got Kim, we have you, and now we have Little That's Rich.
Who are they?
The top 1/10 of 1%.
What are they like?
These people are so posh and snobby, they're snotty.
That's Rich on the Mark Thompson Show.
The rich usually get what they want, and when it's rich and other rich in a negotiation, it's hard to know what rich party will get what they want, and here's what I mean. Sylvester Stallone sold his place for $58 million, but there was a hitch in the deal. It's a 8-bedroom. Oh, this is good, actually. Hang on a second before I tell you. 8 bedrooms in this $58 million Stallone place. How many bathrooms? 8 bedrooms. How many bathrooms? You can guess right in the chat. How many bathrooms in the Stallone estate just sold to Adele? Square footage? We don't tell you square footage. You have to know certain things. We don't take follow-up questions. Square footage, please. There's a look at the gate. Will you put some of the guesses up, Albert? Some on the screen for... We'll put some of the guesses on screen for the home audience. 5 says David. 8.5 says Bill Lundgren. Randy says 9. 20. 20. It's 8 bedrooms with 20 bathrooms? Well, it's mostly a house of bathrooms, really, with just a couple of bedrooms. 11 says Nick. 1 bedroom who was built prior to World War II, says Chris. The answer is 8 bedrooms, 12 bathrooms.
Oh, okay.
So Stallone, 76 years old, been planning on taking this statue of Rocky that was alongside the pool. You can see some of the estate now. It's pretty nice, as you might imagine, for $58 million. He wanted to take this statue with him. Well, Adele wanted to buy the house. And she said, but part of the deal is I want that statue. And Stallone said, well, you know, it's from Rocky, and, you know, Rocky is a big part of, you know, our family, and, you know, what helped, you know, bust open my career in Hollywood. And Adele said, I understand that. That's one of the reasons I want the statue. Finally, Stallone revealed that the statue of Rocky, the 1976 American sports drama, was left for her. He was going to take it with him, but she insisted she wanted to stay on the property. So apparently, she tore down the entire place.
What?
But
look at that house.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a teardown.
No.
15 months after she snapped up Stallone's Beverly Park home for $58 million, Adele is ripping up the massive mansion and making it her own. The one part of Stallone's property to remain untouched is the pool area, which has the statue of Rocky. Yeah. It's the one at the top of the steps in the Philadelphia Art Museum with Rocky with his, you know, his fist pointing to the sky. You know. Meantime, on the other side of Richville, more than 20 buyers vied for Bradley Cooper's L.A. bungalow. He had a 1920s home. Now, this is not a story of big money. It's a story of celebrity and wealth, but when I tell you the numbers, you're going to go, well, asking $2.4 million. Kim has that honor, $2.4 million. I mean, come on. You need that to go over the Golden Gate Bridge.
It's my pocket change.
Bradley Cooper has a buyer for this place that we're showing you. It was put on the market less than a month ago. He had 20 different people competing to buy it. He's lived there for almost 20 years. He paid just under $1.2 million for the place. It's a 2-bedroom house. It has beautiful landscaping around it. You can see the kitchen there. Inside, Mr. Cooper, 48 years old, worked with interior designer Santania de Chelelele.
It's really pretty. Look at all that ivy.
To style the space. Features details like reclaimed wood ceilings and concrete floors. Classic California styling, indoor and outdoor living. French doors opening. Flooding the property with light is the outdoors. Well, it's intoxicating for sure. And it's been scooped up. $2.4 million. Bradley Cooper saying goodbye to Smallsville, moving uptown.
Yeah.
And finally, What?
It looks like maybe it was his, pre-big money house.
Yes, I agree.
That maybe that was he made the first movie, so he's like, oh, I have a couple million. But that's beautiful. And what's sad is $1 million, $2 million. That's kind of middle income, middle class situation for people in California, right? In Southern California.
I don't know about. I mean, middle class.
I don't
maybe.
know. I mean, it's not like.
Certainly you can't. I mean, that's what I was saying.
You can't buy a house for less than $1 million.
Yeah, you can't go to Pack Heights or you can't go to the Marina, wherever. You're not going to be able to find. If you want to look in the Millennium Tower.
Yeah.
Is it Millennium Tower?
Millennium. Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to need a couple of but I mean, it's a sad fact. Yeah, that real estate is that expensive. You're right, though.
Yeah.
Finally, Wilt Chamberlain, Hall of Famer. His futuristic party house is back on the market. They want to sell it, the people who have it now. Take a look at it. It's really cool looking. It's futuristic and somewhat notorious. It was built for Wilt Chamberlain in the 70s. It's back on the market. How much do they want for the Wilt Chamberlain house? You're saying, well, tell us something about it.
Is that a statue of him with flags? What is that? Up on the ceiling?
Albert, what is that? I bring in our real estate maven is Albert. He'll tell you what it is.
I think he's having microphone troubles again.
No, all right.
Yeah.
You could swim under and into the house with this indoor-outdoor pool setup he's got.
I love it.
But the owners got rid of that. Why would you get rid of that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Seems like a selling feature.
They've added sort of more mundane amenities, a vegetable patch and fruit trees. It's got a lot of great vegetation and sort of grounds around it.
It looks like a James Bond house from
the
classic movies.
The architecture inspired by Frank Lloyd Wright, very much intact. It's a private hilltop location. It is. I'm trying to find the just a basic breakdown on square footage so that you can guess. I don't see a square footage breakdown. I feel it's this is a tough guess now because we don't really know. I'll tell you what it was listed for. Let me just see. We do have some guesses though. Chad guessed 7.5. Calvin guessed 35. $12 million says Kim Schaefer. Let me just look. I think, wait a minute. Kim Schaefer's a winner.
Oh.
12 million. Kim Schaefer, well done. Indeed. They are selling the Wilt Chamberlain estate for $11.995 million. Yeah. Well done.
I think I saw Debbie in the comment section saying there's a lot of windows. Yeah, that's a lot of Windex. $12 million of Windex.
There are maintenance fees, costs that you have to build into owning a house like it's a special place.
There's people. They have people for that, Albert.
Look at that pool. Yeah, it would be an honor, Albert, don't you see, and Debbie, to clean the windows at that estate. I should be so lucky to have a ladder and to clean the windows there in formerly Wilt Chamberlain land. There's the kitchen. Beautiful.
You like the kitchen? I think that's a little too industrial. I like that it opens to the outside. What's with the red ceiling?
You can paint that, Kim. You don't have to have a red ceiling. What
everything
color
looks
would
so
you like
industrial.
to have?
You could just bring a hose inside the house and just literally paint it that way.
What would you like? What color would you like that ceiling to be, Kim?
I don't like the ceiling color. I think I just want a normal white ceiling. That's what I want.
All right. Well, you could have that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do. Those are pretty easy fixes. Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of falling in love with it.
Really?
Well,
I'm
it is,
convinced
as Albert,
this bedroom is straight from a James Bond film with
Albert's
during
right,
the sexy
James
time
Bond
scenes.
thing. The James Bond thing is really appealing to me. So
Albert can already see himself getting it on in that bedroom.
well,
No, I could see Sean Connery get it on in this
there
bedroom.
you
In this
go.
bedroom. That's what I see.
No.
No. All right. And they're the grounds I was talking about. Really beautiful. So,
Thank you, Cabo Jeff. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need to worry. Kim, Cabo Jeff says you don't live there. So,
yeah.
very pretty. That, my friends, rounds out That's Rich for today.
More on how the other half lives.
These people aren't just rich, they're crazy rich.
Next time on The Mark Thompson Show.
And Kim says it was indeed 9,300 square feet on 2.5 acres. So, yeah. She knew a lot about it, Kim Schaefer. Nice guess.
Yeah.
I'm hoping, Kim Schaefer, that you didn't Google it, because it does sound like you know a lot about the property now. And if you Googled it, I'll just say that, we on the honor system here, you don't, I have to retract the ding and the applause, and there's just a lot.
Google it.
It's a lot in the bylaws of the Mark Thompson Show I have to go through if indeed you Googled it before you answered. So I'll remind everyone that our guesses have to be, Google search and internet search free. Can't go on DuckDuckGo. Can't go, you get it. Anyway, it's sad that we're getting toward the end of the show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I do want to recognize Albert, who do I want to recognize? Anyone? Yeah, Stephen Armonger. And Stephen, thank you for the super sticker for $20. I give you applause, and I also give you a big Dan Ashley shout out. No, the shout out, please.
Big shout out.
There you go. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And Stephen, I'm even going to give you a...
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for being part of things today.
I like his last name.
Ironmonger.
That's
I
cool.
loved it. I like exotic things. You know that, Kim. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, everybody who supports us in all the ways you do. So, look, I'd like to hang out myself all day. I really do. This is the best part of my day every day.
What?
Yeah, I know. You can draw whatever conclusions you want from that. But we had Rothmann. We talked about the J6 rioter who was sentenced. Touched a bit on Hunter Biden. And we did a lot of stuff that wasn't political also. Tomorrow, the law with David Katz, the former federal prosecutor, who will be here. Also tomorrow, Belinda Weymouth. It's the Planet Stupid News of the Environment. And more. Kim is going over to Nikki's show.
Did you really just do that?
I know. Are you hosting or are you just sidekicking?
Hosting
over there. All right. Until
I'm
tomorrow.
Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
We're going to be here full strength tomorrow.
All the time. Bye-bye.
But for now, bye-bye.